Okay, I'm hitting. Can you hit? Do you have like a little kind of infinity looking thing like that?
Where would that be? Oh, yes. It says
Hit that and
hosts.
see if it'll let you invite me.
Okay.
Because mine's not working, and I think my account. There we go. My account may be banned or something.
Ruh-roh.
I posted 2 videos today and have no views on either one of them. So I think TikTok is effing with me. All right, we're live on all the platforms.
All right. It's good to see everybody. Here we are. It is such an amount of stress to get to this point every part of the week where we're like sitting down and the sound is working. It's so stressful. Anyway, glad folks are starting to pop on. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Should we play the open?
Yeah. With our very cool British voiceover.
Yes. Although you won't hear it on TikTok, but here we go.
All right, everybody.
She's a former mayor. They're a former evangelical pastor with dissociative identity disorder. These two like to talk about the topics you're not supposed to talk about. They might cause you to perspire just a bit, but they'll definitely make you inspired. Let's talk religion and politics, and what spirituality and emotional well-being look like in a post-evangelical world. This is Paul and Ashley on Evangelicalish.
All right. Here we are. So I literally, I am like, low grade banned on TikTok or something because I have literally no viewers on my live.
Here we go again. I mean, that's just like kind of happens quite regularly, right?
F you, TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's wild that it'll let me be a guest on yours.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe folks who are joining either on YouTube, Facebook, or on the Evangelicalish TikTok account, you can let us know, like, what happens if Paul can't get any viewers on his page, and yet we can pull him into this one. Does anybody know what's going on?
Crazy.
Okay.
Oh, wait. I have one viewer now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess TikTok's just squashing me.
Okay.
Crazy.
Art says hi, guys, on YouTube. Good to see you there,
Art. Hi, Art. Hi, Guy. All right. So we are going to talk Christian nationalism today, and we saw it up close and personal. Is that right? Up close and personal? Is that the right way to say that?
I mean, that's what people say, yes. I mean, probably grammatically correct would be up close and personally.
Yeah.
Right? But up close and personal, we were there.
Close and personal. We saw it coming. We saw its ugliness, and we couldn't stop it. But if you're wondering a little bit of what Christian nationalism is about, I'm going to play for those of you on YouTube and Facebook. And I guess I could play it on okay, good. Let's do this. always lots of technical stuff. We need a producer so badly, huh? All right, so this is what Christian nationalism looks like now. This is the head of the Heritage Foundation, the authors of Project 2025.
All this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. We are going to prevail. Let me speak about the radical left, that the left has taken over our institutions. The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
We've been seeing that a lot. Like, I'm curious, how many folks out there have been seeing that clip play again and again. I was talking with someone this last week who is very active in the presidential campaign at the grassroots level, working in different precincts and swing districts, and she was saying, kind of going door to door, people are not aware of Project 2025. And so she was kind of like wringing her hands and saying like, I don't think this is really getting out there. But from my perspective, it has been really loud. Like the last week, I feel like I've heard that clip like 100 times. So hopefully it's a case that it's getting out there and people are starting to wonder like, well, what exactly is this?
Yeah, he's threatening violence. He's like, we're winning, we're taking this country and making it Christian. We're going to have a religious takeover of the republic and no longer, have a minority party in charge. And he's saying, if it takes violence, if anybody tries to get in our way, we will use violence to do it. These are scary people, because it's why I say spirituality is beautiful. Jesus is beautiful. Religion is scary, because one, religion can steal your ability to have empathy for other people, because you now are in a supremacist position of I'm good and you're bad. And if I'm doing something for God, remember the German army in World War II had belt buckles that said, go with God. They declared God is on our side in World War II. And if you're doing something for God, there are no rules. You can do anything you want. And this is what we saw as I was pastoring and you were in elected office in our in the early zeros.
Okay, I will say though, I think it's been a little bit of a slow boil though.
Yeah.
And now it just feels like everything is like bubbling over. But yeah, Paul and I have we have had so many moments when like over the last 10, 15 years, we're looking at each other like, what? Like, where are we? What is going on? So we wanted to share some of those stories with you all tonight.
It makes me say, do Christians ever actually read the Bible? Like, have they ever actually read the Bible and sat and thought, who is Jesus and what does he think about this?
So yes, so that's your perspective, which I always find so interesting and useful. I will admit to not being like a Bible scholar or anything, but raised in the church, just have had so many incredible, I would say like faith or spiritual experiences in my life. Faith is a huge part of my life for 50. Well, I prayed the sinner's prayer when I was a 4-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And I remember as being
you had committed some grievous sins in those 4 years.
And the funny thing is, and my dad was a pastor at a Southern Baptist church in the southern part of the U.S. So this was in the like late 70s when I was 4. And I remember thinking by age 4, I had already heard so much about the importance of saying yes to Jesus, and that someday God was going to ask me these 2 questions, and then I was going to be standing in front of God. And then if I didn't get the questions right, I could be cast into eternal damnation. So as a 4-year-old, I remember telling my dad.
Isn't that a beautiful thing to tell a 4-year-old
At the time, I was like, Dad, you have to help me say that prayer. I want to get it right with Jesus and God. And so I had a real sense of urgency and a real sense of connection and commitment to Christianity. Got baptized when I was 5. All this to say, but I'm also not a biblical scholar. I just grew up in like what would be kind of a run of the mill, Baptist, and then ultimately independent and charismatic end of the Christian church world. So we would be, over the last 15 years, Paul and I found ourselves in so many interesting situations. Either they were church things and we were there because Paul was a pastor of a church, and we would get invited to these conferences and get invited to speak at things. So we were either there as like, pastor and his wife, Christian couple, or we were in all these governmental kinds of circles, and we were there as like Mayor Swearingen and her husband, Paul. And a lot of the Christian types of people who were starting to be like 7 mountains, Lance Wallnau, let's conquer, let's take over government, they would show up and I'd be like, okay, yeah, cool. Let's talk about like what needs to be done to reform and transform public service and government and like all the technical things of that. And people would have they would show up with no technical skill or expertise or understanding or anything like that. And they just be like, I'm ready to run the government. And I just so eyes wide open of like, what? You think the Bible says that? Mine was like, what? You think you should just like come in and take over government because Jesus told you to? Like,
God.
this stuff is technical. You have to know how to run stuff. You got to have like a background that supports you having access to the the levers of power. Anyway, that was my kind of, God, why does it always feel so weird when we're in these spaces? So anyway.
Let us know in the comments where did you see Christian nationalism on the rise in your time in Christianity, and let's chat about this. And our timeline as a family, that's ironic because we're going to talk about the family in a little while and how scary, when we see this guy from the Heritage Foundation. And by the way, when Donald Trump was running the first time in 2016, Heritage Foundation handed him a list of judges. And they said, we need you to commit to these people being on the Supreme Court. And he said, yeah, Brett Kavanaugh, Coney Barrett, all of the above, the Heritage Foundation are the ones that told Trump, these are the guys you have to pick. And now they're saying Project 2025, get rid of all unappointed, non-political appointees in the government.
Civil service.
Service, yep. And just a whole bunch of, and take off all the limits of power for the presidency, the executive office, and the Supreme Court's kind of back that up. And we've seen this scary stuff coming. But for us, for you and me, we got married in 1994, and we live in a city called Fresno, California, which is right in the middle of California. And the Central Valley, like people talk about the Bible Belt in the South, Tennessee, Kentucky. Well, they don't necessarily have that much on the Central Valley of California. It is the Bible Belt of California for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's considered, it's kind of the same, right? I don't know that it would be that much different from southern parts of the U.S. or whatever. But it's
most people think there isn't a Bible Belt in California.
There is. There's definitely an inland California that feels very Midwestern, very Southern at times. So yeah.
Well, the two counties south of us. Well, I know Kern County, which is the very southern county of Central California, 73% for Trump in 2020.
Well, 73%. I mean, home of Kevin McCarthy, right? Like he represented that district for a long time. So yeah, that gives you a sense. So, but here we are, two, pretty innocent, earnest people who at the time Paul was in broadcasting and television journalism.
Yes, Holly Nass, by the way, California does have hillbillies. You remember that book, Grapes of Wrath? This is where they landed, Bakersfield, and up the Central Valley. So yes, those Oklahomans who ran from the Dust Bowl landed here and now are these very conservative Californians. Yep.
So Paul and I land independently get to Fresno, meet each other here. Paul was working for a television station, had spent a lot of years developing the skill and the technique to be, a sportscaster. I was working in business, got into the field of economic development. And for both of us, faith was just this huge tenet in both of our lives, both preachers' kids, et cetera. And we were in kind of by that point in sort of the charismatic end of the Christian stuff. And we, carried a genuine and sincere belief that God is real, love is real. And all of us flowing God through our love and prayer for our community, our community would change. And we could see real and tangible differences in our community. So we go down the path of okay, Paul decides to start a church the same year I decide to run for mayor. And
let me say, we had a Bible verse. I know a lot of people love Jeremiah 29:11. We hung on to Jeremiah 29:7, which says, and it's God talking through Jeremiah to the people of Israel, to the church in essence, saying, you're going to go into captivity in Babylon, a really evil place. And when you get there, revolt. No, that's not what Jeremiah 29:7 says. Pray for the welfare or the shalom or the prosperity of the city where I send you, because in its welfare, in its prosperity, in its shalom, you will have your shalom. Pray for the welfare of your city, for in its welfare you find your welfare. And so we were like, oh, even if we declare the city is evil because it's not Christian, we're still to pray for its benefit and its prosperity and its justice, because that's where our prosperity and justice comes from, is taking care of each other as a community. And so we thought that sounded like a really good Christian concept.
Well, and I would say with that attitude, I would say we never really felt like we fit in with the sort of thinking of at the time, like a lot of the sort of church activism in our community was very, very already sort of aligned to what we're seeing today. But like we prayed to the same God. We all could agree. Like we could go to the annual prayer breakfast and be like, absolutely, let's pray for the city and like feel like we are in alignment, right? That was kind of our early days of, because of our faith, we are stepping out to try to be a part of seeing community change. Like we think God shows up, things should change, should get better, right? So we're feeling like we're in the same kind of big tent of other people in the Christian community who were showing up to volunteer or whatever. So that's where things started. And then, and I'm running for a nonpartisan office. I think for me, the first time that I was like, wait, what? Like RCA dog moment, like what? I mean, like, I'm not really sure I understand this. The first time I had that experience was after I got through the primary. So there were like 14, 15 people running for office. It's a strong mayor form of government. It's a large city. It's a pretty high profile own media market here. It's pretty high profile government seat. And
fifth largest city of the state of California,
yeah.
which is the most populous state in the country.
So very, very like crowded field. Lots of Republicans in the field, several Democrats. I get through and I'm running against a Democrat. Again, it's a nonpartisan seat. I'm a registered Republican, however. So of course the local party, like quote, finds out whatever, that, oh, there's a person running for this seat who hasn't been involved in politics. She is a registered Republican. We should show up and wrap our arms around her and make sure everyone knows she's the Republican in the race. And that I was kind of like, I mean, I'd never had exposure to, other than just like voting, I'd never had exposure to partisanship at that level. And so it's kind of a confusing.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? We should say
okay.
you were against another Republican Christian in a primary, and one of our local pastors in a meeting I heard about said, you should vote for this other guy because he's a Christian. And somebody said, well, Ashley's a Christian and a Republican. And that pastor said, oh, Ashley's too pretty to be mayor.
I forgot about
Which
that.
just tells everything you need to know about evangelical Christianity in America, doesn't it?
Also, thank you.
Yeah, that's horrifying. And
what? Anyway, okay. Okay, so so I start getting invited to like Republican events, local events, and you're running for office and you're trying to get your name out there and meet people, and obviously you want to build support. So I say yes to those invitations. I say yes to a bunch of different kinds of things. And I remember sitting down and talking with our local county, like volunteer county party chairman, and a believer. And he's kind of interviewing me for, is the party going to endorse you or not? And I remember thinking, gosh, I just want to be nothing but honest and forthright. And I want to be like, at all times, I never want to have a secret agenda. At all times, I just want to like be, like respect people and tell them what I'm thinking. So I remember sharing with this person that I didn't really understand why, if there was a Democrat running for an office and they were really well qualified, and I felt confident that they would actually do the job really well, like I disclosed, like I might cross party and endorse somebody who's like a Democrat. And I'm thinking I'm being very noble to share this and to be like, I'm not trying to hide anything. Just want you to know who I'm at, where I am. I'm kind of this independent type. And it was a really offensive. This person was was really shocked that a registered Republican who potentially could be a public office holder would ever say anything good about a Democrat. And I just remember thinking like, God, that's just odd to me, because I mean, aren't we supposed to be honest? Like, what if it's really true? Or, it's my opinion, but I can say like, hey, I think this is really true. So that was my first like, you mean at all times we're supposed to just say whatever is Republican is good and whatever is Democrat is bad? And this person, bless their heart, said yes, because abortion.
Yeah, you're saving babies.
Yes, because abortion. I said, well, what if a person's really unqualified and they're running for something, and I have an obligation for whatever reason, but I need to say who I think is best for the job. I should say they're better for the job? Yes, because abortion. And I'm literally thinking to myself, dude, potholes, balanced budgets, cops, like these are the things you deal with as a city mayor. I'm not thinking about abortion. But that was my introduction to like partisanship. And I'll stop there, and you can say your introduction to I don't know, whatever on the church side.
And what we know now and didn't realize at the time is this was incrementalism. You have to elect a dog catcher that is an anti-abortion extremist, because that dog catcher may become a city council person and then become a state legislator, and eventually we get a Christian into Congress. And Fresno is a city that prided itself on, we elect Christians. We have Christian mayor and Christian sheriff and Christian police chief, and then you and I would say, isn't that wonderful? But our city is crap, and it has severe financial, like I think you use the line at times, it's the Appalachia of California. It's
not me. It's like literally the federal government, based on data, like published a big old report, like announcing to the world, like there's this huge part of California that's got massive problems, and it's like our community, that.
So it's a very impoverished area, and it was why when we got married, we decided to stay in Fresno rather than move somewhere else, because we wanted to be a part of seeing Fresno transformed into this great place. So we thought that meant better education and better standards of living and economic growth in the city. And the Christians around us were like, no, we just need to get people saved and vote against any pro-choice candidate.
Right, pretty much.
And that's what
but I have to say, there were a lot of people who I would say couldn't articulate that, but they were flowing with that. That was like people who were showing up who had influence or were, involved, maybe in the local party.
I had a pastor tell me that. So
okay, but that's the thing. In the pastor circles, like in the pastor circles, because you guys would meet all the time, and you're over there in the pastor's world, I'm over here in the government world, and as a government leader, I am saying things like, like, y'all, let's pray for our city. I did like a citywide call to prayer across different faith congregations, different faith traditions. Like, everybody should be praying to their God, bless this place. Can we agree on that? And so that was kind of how we were rolling, And then I think, sort of fast forward, I think on the church side, for me, what I observed that was the first like, whoa, wait a second. We may have very different points of view on this, is the Lance Wallnau situation.
Yeah.
You should tell that part of it.
Yeah, I will. I'm trying to see if I don't know why my touch screen is not working, because I have one person here, McCheesy Taco, who recently was on one of our lives and told me to unalive myself, which again shows who Christians, and he is declaring Trump 2024. But interesting, Willa here says, a Christian city electing Christians, imagine my shock. And Willa, I would just say to you, does being Christian mean even if a Christian running for office is completely incompetent and cannot do the job, which is quite often true, you still vote for them because they're Christian?
It just, it's just like, at what point did that become? I mean, it's a religious test.
And is the religious test that you're an anti-abortion extremist? Is that
And
what makes you a Christian
that
candidate?
is even
you're
that's the more
homophobic?
important
Is that
point.
what
Yeah.
makes you a Christian candidate?
That's the more important point. And like, meanwhile, kids are walking to school in the most disinvested neighborhoods in the US, which is like a huge determinant of the quality of that school. So, just anyway,
and a severely redlined city that is still suffering the consequences of that redlining that existed in practice and even in writing in some leases well into the 80s. So, I think Christian means we want human beings to succeed and thrive. And what Christianity became is we don't care about human beings thriving. We just care about fetuses and political power, in some ways. And again, like you said, they're not always voicing it straight out. But I'll go to the Lance Wallnau thing and we can keep going on that. Lance Wallnau is a big pro-Trump prophet. Now, we know a lot of prophets in our line of Christianity, and we don't know a single prophet in our line of Christianity who said, God is telling me there's going to be a worldwide pandemic and it's going to fundamentally change economics across the entire world. Amazing that God left that out. Many of them also prophesied that Trump would win the 2020 election, and they were wrong about that. And few of them have yet to admit that they were wrong in that. But Lance Wallnau was one of these 7 mountains. If you haven't heard of the 7 mountain theology, it's the idea that Christianity, a 7 mountains theologian would say, you're right, Christianity is not just about getting people to heaven. It is about taking over civil institutions so that we can put Christianity into them and make our country great again.
Can I split a hair right there with you?
Sure.
Because as you said that, I'm remembering when we first heard about the 7 mountain theology, and we were hearing about it from people who I don't think they were thinking, let's institute Christian civil code, except in the case of abortion, and maybe to a lesser extent on anti-LGBTQ. But there was a lot of like, hey, we want to show up with love. We want to change the atmosphere. We want to do impossible things. And there was a lot of sort of good and positive energy that was coupled. I don't think some of those folks realized that they were partnering up. And I don't think they realized there was sort of like this power agenda in the 7 mountains thing. They may or may not have been dialing into it, but all of a sudden you got this sort of marriage of people who I think were generally just like, God, that sounds so great. We were made to be kings and rulers and conquerors and da-da-da-da. And like, yeah, we want to run these sectors of society like heaven on earth. I mean, how many times did we hear that? And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there could be some innocence and some positive, like, sure, okay, maybe. But then it all blended in with people who ended up like literally like just wanting the power agenda.
Yeah, and I think, and I did a video on this earlier this week, people like Jerry Falwell Sr., and maybe didn't mean to at the start, but Frank Schaeffer is a prominent speaker out there now. His dad, Francis Schaeffer, was one of the main guys of the moral majority of the late 70s, early 80s. And Frank Schaeffer was there as his dad's right-hand man. And Frank Schaeffer is saying today, they knew it was about power. They're like,
okay,
we are playing the long game to take power. And that's what Catherine Stewart's book, The Power Worshipper, says, that even the little after-school volunteer programs were all about Christianity taking over civil institutions.
Yeah. Okay. Super interesting. I think in our little wackadoodle charismatic world of California, I don't think there was a lot of awareness of that. I think that the whole Jerry Falwell long line of the moral majority types, I think that's pretty clear. But you and I were in a space that was sort of insulated and isolated from that. And then all of a sudden it wasn't,
Yeah.
So that's the Lance Wallnau thing. So tell that story.
And there was something ingrained in even end times prophecy of like, oh, we need to get Israel back, being a country. We need to get the temple rebuilt so that Jesus will come back. So all of this was going on. By the way, Willa says politics is about power. That's the point. I think you, having been a politician, would you disagree with that statement?
I mean, not necessarily. But I don't think that every person serving an elected, I think it is possible to serve an elected office and be about reform, service, outcomes. But the thing is that like you have to do things like compromise. You have to do things like agree with your enemy. Sometimes you have to say no to your base, and that can compromise your, climb up the power ladder.
If politics is all about power, then you will compromise your morals. If politics and government is about the welfare of the people, politics is then about compromise. It's about wrestling. This is your viewpoint. This is mine. Let's wrestle over it together and think about where we can come to a place that really serves our constituency. This is the problem, this thing of like, well, politics is all about power. I think that is where the Christians we're talking about got taken over. It's like, oh, Democrats are so evil. We've been told it for so long. We've swallowed it for so long that now it's just about Republicans winning elections.
Yeah.
Because Republican equals Christian. And whenever a political party or a political government represents Christianity throughout history, bad things happen.
Now
That's
think about like, so in this, we're assuming a lot of like negative stuff around the word power. I think you might also just be talking about authority or responsibility, and so to reform, yes, you have to have the jurisdiction or the authority to make the changes that you're recommending. You have to build the case for that. You need to have the support of the people, all of that kind of stuff, obviously. But I think what you're calling out is like the self-serving kind of, like just the thing that makes you not stand up and say what you really think or what you really know is the truth about something, because your base is going to get mad.
Let's say it's Franklin Graham saying Bill Clinton can no longer be president because he cheated on his wife. And if his wife and daughter can't trust him, how can he be commander in chief? And how can the country trust him? And then here comes Trump, and Franklin Graham is saying, we're not electing a pastor in chief. We're electing a commander in chief.
Totally.
That's what.
Oh my God.
are.
Totally. I mean,
that's
the
what
hypocrisy.
Our side needs to have power to impose, and we will do anything to get to that end of imposing Christian ideals into civil code.
Yeah. Like the hypocrisy, the lack of humility, like to me, all that, like, again, I don't think Jesus would have been a very good, like, I mean, he wouldn't have been a good Republican. He would have been
a terrible American
Republican,
Christian,
a terrible, yes. So anyway, I keep wanting you to tell the Lance Wallnau story.
Okay.
This is before anybody's ever heard of Lance Wallnau. This is like 2000, maybe like 10 or 11. Okay. This is like way back.
Yeah. And so as this Seven Mountain thing was going on, people wanted to get connected to you because, oh, she's a Christian elected official. She's smart, pretty, as our pastor friend said in his, whatever. And so they wanted to get connected. So we had a lot of people reaching out, but Lance Wallnau was somebody that we thought, ooh, this is, we thought was a good person and somebody that we would want to connect with and learn more. And so he reached out to us by email, and that he got through a friend of ours. And so he was talking about how important it was to take the mountains. We need to take the 7 mountains of culture. And this is after I had been to the Lou Engle event, where I had been horrified by Lou, just ripping California and just like the American dream is dead. And just these horrifying things that I couldn't believe were coming out of a Christian's mouth. And so I emailed back, hi, Douglas, good to see you. I emailed back to Lance and said, we would love to talk to you. We're honored that you reached out. Just so you know, we believe that when we look at the story of Jesus, that we're called to serve the mountains of culture, not take them over. Jesus was offered by Satan the power of all the kingdoms of the world, and Jesus said, no, thank you. That's not the way it's supposed to happen. And so I emailed back and said, we believe we're supposed to serve the mountains. And we never heard from Lance Wallnau again. And now Lance Wallnau is one that believes we need to start setting up gallows on Pennsylvania Avenue and doing terrible things to people who disagree with his particular type of Christianity.
Yep.
And it's kind of interesting. I'm seeing a lot of comments in TikTok, and they're like, well, that's those Christians, I'm sorry, Christians are kind of funny in that, and it's in that our truth is immutable. The Bible is inerrant to 33,000 different denominations of Christianity. It's so clear cut. There are only 33,000 disagreements amongst people groups inside of Christianity. And so when you say, oh, it's those bad Christians, not us,
well,
I think that may take some introspection at times.
And yeah, obviously, Paul and I go round and round on this point. Like Paul calling out all Christians, versus like, well, not this person, not that person, etc. And I think what I always hear you say, Paul, when I ask you about it and when you're challenged on that approach, you're like, look, even if you don't realize it, like even if we are living in such a time that if you are not willing to be reflective and at all times, check your own heart. Are you partnering with anything that is propping up this religious political thing? If you're not willing to do your own work on that, A, B, stand up and say something because it's happening all around us in the name of Jesus. You would just say, I've heard you say, I don't want to be at the end of my life and say, I saw it happening and I didn't say anything.
Absolutely. And I'm crazy enough to read the Bible. And there was never a moment where Jesus said, I'm going to say something negative about my particular sect of religious people. But first, to be fair, let me say it's not all. And I'll say some bad things about the Romans and Samaritans too, just to make you all happy. That did not ever happen in the Bible. And Jesus would say, "O Jerusalem, you who killed the prophets." And not everybody in Jerusalem had killed a prophet. There were 3,000 Jews or 3 million Jews in Jerusalem that day. Not all of them had killed a prophet. But he said, this is the principality, the mindset that is over this city. It's a prophet-killing city, and that is the judgment over the entire people group. And in Revelation, again, if you're going by the Bible, it says, if you are lukewarm, you will be spit out of the mouth of Jesus, which I think is a horrifying verse. And I think Revelation has all kinds of problems. But if somebody is saying, I'm a Christian, I believe in the inerrant Bible, then I think that verse is saying, being in the holy middle and being a fence sitter and saying, it's not me and my people, it's those Christians over there. You are lukewarm. I don't think there is a fence sitting position anymore to say, either I'm with that or I'm speaking out against it or I'm complicit to it. I kind of feel like that's where we are. Okay. But the problem then with all the, okay, go ahead.
We have 3 more things that we have got to share because there's like this, the whole sort of the subheader of this episode should be like the times when Paul and Ashley went, huh? Yeah. From like 2008
things that make you go,
Things that make you go, wait, what? Okay. So we spend 8 years. For 8 years, I'm the mayor of Fresno. Paul is serving as a pastor of a local church. For 8 years, we're invited into these spaces, either because like, oh, it's a government thing or it's a church thing. But like when we're around this like religious political thing, both Paul and I are like, what? What? We don't like, the Bible doesn't say that. Okay. So we have 3 more things. Okay.
All right. Well, let's do it. Why don't we do a quick break before we hit into those 3 things?
You got to hang on to hear these 3 more things till after the break.
Hang in there till after the break. All right, here we go.
In America today, what would he say about the right-wing evangelical church? Pastor Paul's new novel, Religious Right, Religiously Wrong, a modern-day parable, answers this question in a riveting story of a mysterious miracle-working stranger who upsets a conservative, evangelical town with his critique of their political views. Will the pastor and people of the local megachurch listen? Or will the church crucify the messenger all over again? Religious Right, Religiously Wrong is the story America needs right now. James Fallows, writer for The Atlantic and former speechwriter for President Jimmy Carter, says Paul's book is very much worth reading and could not be more timely. Wayne Jacobson, co-author of the mega bestseller, The Shack, says this novel will confront fears and challenge the reader to a more excellent way of living and loving. Religious Right, Religiously Wrong, a modern-day parable, is available on Amazon or at our website evangelicalish.com.
The Iron Curtain here, right? Like deep Alabama, Florida.
Yep.
I am so excited to share our plan to utilize the award-winning documentary 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture, as a tool for civic engagement and to drive voter registration for the 2024 election. Our mission is to facilitate outreach by organizing 14 free public conferences in U.S. cities highly impacted by extremist ideologies. The primary objective of these assemblies is to activate the audience to vote as we engage in thoughtful civil dialogue about mistranslation weapons that are often used against LGBTQIA+ people. This doesn't just affect the LGBTQIA+ community. This stretches into voter rights, reproductive rights, desegregation, women's rights, and so forth. Please reach out to 1946themovieinfo@gmail.com to get involved, help us coordinate, hire, and promote the events in your area. Or you can donate to the GoFundMe and help us pay for the crew, gas, lodging, security, food, all the things to get us on the road for the 35 days needed to hit all 14 cities. See you on the road.
All right. Two really awesome things. If you haven't checked out Paul's book, you definitely should. It's actually very relevant to what we're talking about tonight because it's a compilation of things that we experienced here in Fresno, coupled with some just fantastic writing and creative storytelling from Paul. So you got to love that. And then, oh my gosh, if you are anywhere around these cities where the 1946 crew is going to be, I guess all through the month of August, you've got to check that out. I've seen that movie 3 times. I would easily watch it. I'd watch it with anybody, anywhere, anytime. It is so good. And such a great example of people who are just like, we got to really check out, like, what are our hearts saying? Like what's going on in our own heart? Is it in alignment with God's heart or not? And like just having total transformational kinds of, I don't know, outlooks on LGBTQIA. So
yeah. And the interesting thing, and it won't just be the movie, we're going to chew into it and really work on what it means. I'm going to bring along the Christian nationalism part of the danger it is to actual, not just to our society, but to real human beings. Like this theology ends the life of human beings. And that being true, I am challenging every Christian to think, is my theology right, first off, and is my need to be theologically pure, even though I would say you're very wrong, but if that's what you believe you're walking in, did Jesus display he would be so willfully unconcerned about the lives of human beings because, well, they're not good enough for us. They're bringing it on themselves. So FYI.
I have to say a quick hello to Enid Street Outreach Services, Oklahoma here watching. And then Larkin says Arkansas here. So, I'm going to stop and say hi back because I was raised in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and all my family's in Tulsa. So Arkansas, Oklahoma, you're speaking my love language. Thanks for joining.
So we're going to be in Memphis and Springfield, Missouri, which are on both sides of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in Oklahoma City.
I was going to say, I thought you had an Oklahoma stop. Yeah, so, yeah. Okay. Well, welcome. All right. So if you are, we have 3 things and you don't even know what this list is because I've been sitting here been sitting here like thinking, oh, these stories are just they're just so incredible. It's the stuff that you live through and you look back on and go like, oh my God, I was in the room when that happened. All right, anyway. And I'm seeing the note that Larkin's saying she's an hour. Larkin is an hour from Fort Smith. Super cool. All right.
Nice.
Okay. So thing one that I wanted to tell about. So again, here's the story. Fresno, California, 5th largest in California. I think 27th largest in the US. Large city, very, very disinvested, very low income, has been for 75 plus years. Very low self-esteem, 20 years in to a 40-year fix. There's all this like civic energy to try to make this place better, different. Like I'm a part of this as a baby staffer. I grew up in it. I ended up becoming the mayor. So for more, 15 years, I've been working alongside these incredible volunteers, fighting hard, trying to make our city a better place at all times. And these are people who are not in the political space and they're not in the like religious space. All of a sudden, here I am, an elected mayor who professes the name of Christ. And all of a sudden I'm everyone's Republican mayor or Christian mayor. And I'm like, whoa, I'm here to just like make sure that like 20 years from now, our place is a different place. I don't know about like this Christian religious stuff. So, and political stuff. So, for 15 years, we have been begging and pleading our state capital and our nation's capital, give a damn about Fresno, because all around us is the produce, the healthy food that feeds our country, and the people living here don't have food. There's a tremendous imbalance and something wrong about that. We need investment here. So there's all this like, I don't know, this heart for advocacy to get the states and the nation's capital to pay attention to this place called Fresno. So in 20,
we heard it all the time. Sacramento and DC don't do anything for us ever.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm walking precincts. I'm hearing this from people door to door, like Sacramento, DC, get them to care about us, get them to, to invest in this place. Okay. I say, I get the job. Now I'm doing my job and I'm pounding on doors. I'm pounding on the White House door. I'm trying to get every attention, every breadcrumb I can get to come to my community. I'm all about it. So it takes 18 months, the first 18 months of the Obama administration. But our team, bunch of Fresno people, like we all come together and we win this huge prize, which is the Obama White House decides their signature domestic policy. They're going to pick 6 cities upon which to focus. They're going to dedicate federal staff to work alongside local people, figure out what the needs are, and try to make the federal-local partnership better. Now, what could be more exciting than that? If you are on a quest to make your city better, you feel overlooked, and all of a sudden, way out, DC, all of a sudden on the West Coast are like, hey, we're going to help Fresno. So I can't wait to tell the people of my community, guess what? We got picked only 6 places in the country. Memphis was another one, for example, for Larkin, whose sister is in Memphis. Like, oh my God, this is the biggest news ever. We call the press conferences. We get these federal officials come out to make the announcement. Our Rush Limbaugh radio station, which is this ginormous, long time, like right-wing radio station in the Central California. The phones blow up. We don't want that president and his help showing up here. Who does this mayor think she is? Like, this is the worst thing. Like, I mean, just absolutely panning the notion that we would, quote, take help from that administration because they're so evil. And literally people telling me, what have you done? You've gotten the U.S. Army to come in and take over our city. And I was absolutely shocked and stunned for a town that for years and years had said, if only we could get some outside help to make our town a better place. Now here it comes. And because the brand of the help, the political party that aligned with this brand. So like essentially like our enemy said, we want to extend the hand and help you. And we saw the enemy and we didn't see the hand. And I mean, to this day, it makes me emotional to think about that we would let a political spirit, I'm going to use churchy words, a political spirit would filter the way in which we were seeing this incredible extension of help. So that was thing one that I wanted to say. That was a like, oh my God. And I will say not long after that. And again, I'm a Christian mayor. And I'm literally spending every month, we're calling people to prayer for the city. We're going from church to church. Pray for Fresno, pray for Fresno, pray for Fresno. Okay. Not long after this Obama announcement comes out, that some of the little old ladies who would sometimes come to our prayer meetings to pray for the city, but were more loyal to the Republican Party and more active in going to their Republican women's lunches and all the things, they came up to me at this prayer meeting and they said, we are praying that Jesus would remove you as our mayor.
Oof.
And that this other person, this council member, whatever, that so-and-so would be elected mayor. Jesus, we are praying to Jesus to get you out of office. I mean, look, say you want me out of office, don't vote for me because, I supported a project you didn't like, or because, something having to do with like the city. Not like, you said yes to that Obama dude, and now Jesus has to get you out.
Mm. Well, let's never forget that when Little Rock Central High School was being desegregated, Christian women organized daily. I don't remember if it was 24-hour, but like maybe it was three prayer sessions a day on the steps of the school, begging God to stop this evil of dark-skinned people coming to their children's school. Yeah. So let's never forget the potential of, and to go along with your story there, like in our spiritual tradition, I would say God told me to vote for President Obama in the 2008 election. I felt something inside of me say, this is the right thing to do. And that was McCain, right? So I did vote for him. And I also had a business partner at the time who is a Black gentleman. And many people around us were upset that President Obama won the election because he was a Democrat, and what could be worse. And many of them also thought he was a Muslim and not an American citizen because we've been groomed in Christianity in America to be easily manipulated. But I saw pictures, videos of grown men, Black men, crying their eyes out because they never thought they would see a Black president in their lifetime. And I thought, this is such a beautiful moment. Even if you don't, it's not your candidate. Boy, this is a beautiful moment. And I found out very quickly, not many of my Christian friends around me agreed that it was a beautiful moment. They thought it was a horrifying moment. And to this day, Barack Obama says, I'm the reason Donald Trump got elected. I committed the crime of being a Black president. And I began to say to my Christian friends around me, like, gosh, we seem very racist. And they're like, oh, it's not race. It's not race. It's not race. I'm like, well, it seems kind of like we are. So that's my memory of that time.
And I will say I was at the 2009 inauguration, and I've never in my life experienced anything like that. There were, I don't remember the exact crowd size, and I hazard, to make a guess. But
like, was much bigger.
I know. It felt like, for 3 days leading up to the inauguration, there were so many people in and around what is it? Sorry, I'm having a brain fart here. The mall, the Capitol Mall. So many people all around the Beltway that literally they're just too many people to fit on the sidewalk. So they're just like walking everywhere, including in the streets, and like traffic was stopped. There were so many.
And it was freezing cold, right? It was
freezing cold. Yeah. And on the actual inauguration day, I've never been like this, like people just pressing up against you for hours and hours and hours and hours. That was the crowd. Not one person got fussy. Not one there was such a peace over this crowd that I've never experienced anything like it. And and to go back to your point about, the church ladies who were praying against the integration of schools in Little Rock, I will say this. as a person who, like a Gen Xer, born in 72, so grew up in the formative years in the 80s, post-civil rights era, you could have said to me 15 years ago, like, oh, those white Christian ladies that were praying against integration. And I was, oh my God, that's the worst thing. Everybody would agree how terrible that is. I think the issue is the issue is over the last 10 years, like we have become that in our generation, but we don't think we are.
Yeah.
We all would look at that era in history as like, look at how bad that is. We'll never be that way. And yet the political religious affiliation, the political religious partnership of our day is actually that. And the problem is you say these kinds of things, Paul, and people sit here all day long and ban you from TikTok and do the Theo bros and talk about how terrible, 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 terrible you are. And all you are saying is like, whoa, hold on. This shit's real. We better make sure we're not partnering with stuff that is not of God. That's all you're saying. And yet it's as if, okay.
Did you get the little note with the puzzle piece?
Oh God, that freaks me out every time. Okay, sorry. I'm not that skilled on like moving the puzzle piece over. Anyway, that's all you're saying is that's so bad. Let's just make sure that is not our hearts now over Obama, Trump, Biden, like all this stuff.
Yeah. Jesus said the leaven of religion will take away your eyes to see and your ears to hear. And what I think that is, it takes away your ability to learn, to grow, to be introspective, to hear other viewpoints and let it impact you. And it's the God hardened Pharaoh's heart at the end of it all. Like you couldn't turn anymore. And I don't think people realize the Christians that hated the white Southern Christians that hated MLK, the white Christians who were praying to keep Little Rock Central High School segregated. They believed as fervently as any pro-life Christian does today that they were absolutely in the right. They were absolutely where God is. And when we lose our ability to start to question, like you and I had to do around some of the black shootings by police officers, we had to start to say, hey, we need to listen, to start to know what we don't know, to learn what we don't know. And that takes an open heart to say, I'm willing to hear some hard things that challenge my belief system, and I'm willing to change if I'm hearing something that tells me I should change.
Okay, I just moved my phone so I could see the screen. This is like a little bit of a random thought, but Victoria's joining us on Facebook. Victoria worked for the Elijah List. I think that's so
my gosh,
crazy.
We have some pretty good friends that are on the Elijah List.
Oh my God, we should have her on as a guest and hear all about that stuff. Because
Victoria, send us an email through the website evangelicalish.com.
Yeah,
we want to connect with you. We
that
have
was
Elijah
kind of the
List
crowd we
connections.
hung out with. That like when I say sort of independent charismatic, we're sort of in that world, and is an interesting place to be in the 2000s and up to 2016 in the Trump days, because like I said earlier, that group was a little bit shielded and inoculated from the like more traditional denominations and such that just have decades and decades of experience of aligning with political stuff. So anyway, for us, it was just such a like weird awakening of like, whoa, our people aren't in that mix, are they? And then kind of like one thing after another, and we're like, wait a second, maybe we are too. And that kind of started our big blow up of our lives.
Yeah. All right, okay. We just have a little bit of time left. Do you want to hit number 2?
I mean, number 3 is a short one, but number 2 is the 2014 National Prayer Breakfast.
Oh, I have a video to play for that.
I know. So if folks can hang in there for we'll go a little bit longer this time, but you got to hear thing 2 and Paul's and Ashley's trip to the National Prayer Breakfast.
We went and we met the leader of the family. And if you haven't known about the family, there's a documentary on Netflix, and here's a little something about that.
I stumbled my way in, and what I found is a secretive Christian organization called The Family that had been hiding in plain sight for over 80 years.
This was a group with tentacles around the world.
A humble example of leadership that the world has never seen.
A breathtaking enmeshment of church and state.
There were congressmen, senators, world leaders.
And they say it's about faith, but there's a shared understanding that what we're really about here is power.
I'd like to single out Doug Coe.
Doug Coe and all of his associates. I'm grateful.
Doug Coe is the longtime leader of The Family.
He's the most powerful man in Washington you've never heard of.
He said the more invisible you can make your organization, the more influence it will have.
Jesus plus nothing. It's a powerful thing.
Using the National Prayer Breakfast, they dispatch representatives to build relationships with foreign leaders.
That is exactly the kind of meeting that I would want to exploit.
For The Family, Jesus says you must go to those who are in positions of power.
God always uses imperfect vessels to do his perfect work. President Trump's an imperfect vessel.
Jesus is the answer, but Jesus and Capitol Hill don't mix.
Because we want our family to stay together.
Ooh.
So yeah, we get invited to go to the 2014 National Prayer Breakfast because, again, of your position as a Christian elected official.
And your position as a pastor. We had some associates.
Nobody ever thought I was quite as cool as you.
Well, okay, but but you know, it was a prayer breakfast, and we knew some people who were staffing the event, and they're like, "Oh, you guys should come." So that's how it all started.
Yeah. So we sat just 20 feet from President Obama, and we sat at a table with Nancy Pelosi and Ted Cruz.
Wait, I got to build up the story. I got to build it up a little bit.
All right.
So here's the way it goes. We get, we've been told, oh, it's a big deal. Everybody comes from around the world. There'll be thousands of people there. You got to go. Okay, fine. We get on a plane. We get there. Our friends who are working the event, they tell us it's in this ballroom. I forget the hotel, but it's in this ballroom, and you have to go down this escalator to get into the ballroom. And there are so many people. It's where Reagan was shot.
It was where Reagan was shot. Whatever that hotel was. I can't remember which one.
Smarter
it was,
people than we are who are listening. We'll put it in the chat. And they're like, when the doors open, there'll be so many people trying to get to their tables that you could wait to get down the escalator for like a long time. So get there early. This gets drilled into our heads. We get there. I'm not kidding you. Like doors open at like 6 a.m. We were there like 6:01. And it wasn't exactly thousands of people yet at 6:01, right?
There was us and about a handful of other people.
It was like us and like the bus staff, putting the butter pats out. Anyway, so we get there in plenty of time. We get shown to our table, and I'm telling you, it was like the front row, like center right from the stage, like a couple dozen feet from where the president ultimately would sit. President Obama was president at the time. If I recall correctly, the first lady was there, but I don't remember entirely. Anyway.
I don't think she was. No.
Okay, shoot. Okay, so anyway, so we're sitting there.
And he gave his testimony, by the way, of his Christian conversion.
And he
President
did.
Obama did.
And he professes his faith in Christ, etc. But that was the program. So we're waiting for this thing to start. And finally, over time, people start filtering in. But Paul and I are literally sitting at this round table for 10 people by ourselves for probably an hour. So here comes this old man. And he sits down right next to me. And he's got on like a bolo tie and like a Southern, preacher white shirt and like a belt buckle and some polyester pants and some cowboy boots. And he sits down next to me, and I was just happy we had company, because I was like, oh, we've been here for an hour. We're just waiting for this thing to fill up. So I start chitty-chatting. Oh, hi, how are you? I'm good. Where are you from? I'm from Texas. Oh, no way. I was born in Texas. Chitty-chat, chitty-chat. Well, what do you do? I'm a pastor. Super cool. My husband Paul is a pastor. What's your name? Raphael. I'm like, oh, okay, Raphael. I see you. Nice to meet you. Then I look down at his name tag, and it says Raphael Cruz. So it was Senator Cruz's father was sitting next to it, and like we're just like shooting the shit with Raphael Cruz.
You forgot the part where he says, "And where are you from?" And you say California, and he's like, "Why would you live in California?" Why would you let, he was
I
bagging
blocked
on
that out.
California.
I must have blocked that part out. I was just like, I am consistently one of those people who I should know who I'm talking to and I don't. And then I find out and I'm like, oh shit. So that happens. Well, then I'm thinking to myself, does that mean Senator Cruz is going to be sitting at our table? Sure enough, the crowd continues to build. Now our table's filling in. There's a couple of people over here speaking like an Eastern European language that I don't understand. And these people from that, and in comes
It's
Ted
probably
Cruz.
like some dictator from Latvia or something.
And or they were like judges from something. Anyway, okay. So Ted Cruz did not run for president until 2016. Is that right?
Correct. I believe that's true. Yes.
But he was like super.
We knew who he was for
profile.
sure.
And there was some like a ton of just like, but he was starting to make his name for himself. So we're sitting there, and there's this little seat next to Raphael, and in comes this person, sits down, Senator Cruz, and we're like, oh my God, we're having breakfast with Senator Cruz. All the seats are filled in except one seat.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're sitting there and they're starting the program, et cetera, this little female staffer walks over and stands behind this open seat at our table. And she leans over to the table and she says, good morning, everyone. Speaker, no, she wasn't speaker. Leader Pelosi just wants you to know that she's on her way and she can't wait to join you. And she'll be here in just a few minutes. So we are now finding out that Nancy Pelosi will also be sitting at our table this morning for breakfast. So now Paul and I are like, oh, Nancy Pelosi walks in, sits right there. Ted Cruz sits right here. And now we're like watching their crosstalk. And they were in this big public spat about something. I don't remember what it was, but it was the most like jaw-dropping moment. And all I can remember is that they were very polite to one another. So there's like the end of that story is anticlimactic. But anyway, so that happened.
She had grandchildren in Houston, and he had ties to Houston, and they had that to chat about.
In family, and it was lovely. All right. So
but do you remember who the Republican co-chair was?
That's just what I was going to say. It was Congressman Gohmert.
Louis Gohmert. Who is now
Gohmert.
He was such a wonderful Christian man that day, and he's turned out to be psycho
and
Trumper.
It was Dem
from Texas, of course.
Dem from California, from the LA Basin, Congresswoman Hahn. And she's the Dem, and he's the Republican, and they make these comments about how, hey, they come together once a week for prayer, and they are working hard to bridge this divide and in politics in the name of Jesus. And then he ends up going off the cliff of crazy, and she ends up like being this like really normal person, but because she's a Dem, we Christians, we got to hate her.
Yeah.
So yes. So anyway, then you've told us,
After the prayer breakfast, we get invited by some friends. So the prayer breakfast is put on by this very secretive, unknown organization called The Family. By the way, Hillary Clinton would go to their house. They own a house near the White House, and she would go there to pray with people. For those of you who think she was doing, eating blood of, whatever QAnon nutso things say, she was a part of this prayer breakfast and prayer places. And so we get invited to go meet this guy, Doug Coe, who's the head of The Family. And we're like, wow.
And we were told by one of our pastor friends who was, I would say, like kind of a mentor to us at the time, like told by this person, Doug Coe is the most powerful person in the country. Like he's so powerful, and he has granted you a meeting. Like you are so lucky that you will get an audience with this man. And Paul and I are like, all right, whatever. We're going, like at this point, like I'm into the White House. Like I met a whole bunch of people. Like I'm kind of thinking it's not a big deal to meet this guy. But the reverence around him was like, oh
my gosh. When we went into this suite,
the inner sanctum.
When we went into this suite in the hotel, what my memory is like some young woman coming out like, Mr. Coe will be ready shortly for you to come in. So just wait here.
Yep.
Like she spoke in these hushed tones, and even our friend who was there with us, like got this sort of,
yes,
like we were walking into this sacred space.
He was already there, as I recall. And
Okay,
he was like, he was like, his body language and his like facials were like, hey, like settle, like sit down, be quiet, like act cool. Like, like it was that whole vibe, very intense. And it was one of those things where like the hotel suite, there was like an outer room and there's like people in there. And then there was the inner room and this couch and like, I don't know, there's probably a dozen people, including Doug Coe, and they were like all seated around him, like waiting for you to come in. So we go again. Paul and I are just like, y'all.
Literally, the hair was standing. Well, I don't know, literally, we won't overuse that word, but the hair was standing up on the back of my neck. I was like, something is really wrong here.
Honestly, that's not what I was thinking. Was like, who the frick do you think you are? Like, who freaking cares, man? It just, I don't like. It was so weird. It was so weird to me that this whole situation was as if this person was a king, and he was
sitting in a high-backed chair, right?
Yeah.
When we came in,
and
there were two couches sitting like this. He was sitting here,
yeah.
And then there were two couches like this, and we were invited to sit on one of the couches.
Yep. I don't know.
And then he had like a helper standing there, but it was the super effing weird, like nothing I've ever experienced.
The mob. I had never been in front of a mob boss, but it was like a movie of like, oh, we're all paying such deference to this person. And again, I'm thinking to myself, and listen, obviously, I was probably feeling a little cocky. I'm like, when you put your name on the ballot and you convince your fellow community members to represent you, you're there with you everywhere you go. You're there with their authority. And I don't know, just being around people who are like trumped up power stuff. You're just like, what is that?
Pun not intended, trumped up.
Pun not intended. Okay. So we sit down to have this meeting with who knows what kind of looks on our faces. And there was like this little sort of ritual speech. There's a little bit of chitty chat. And then there was like this ritual speech about like, I'm extending friendship to you. And then they like give you this little gift. And
somebody's asking who we're talking about. This is Doug Coe, the head of the family. He's passed away now, but in 2014, we met him. There's a documentary on Netflix about the family, this very secretive Christian organization that has tons of influence over power brokers around the world. And they put on the National Prayer Breakfast that happens every year. They are the organization that puts that event on.
Well, now, what I have always wanted to do is, because like I honestly feel like, Paul, you and I are like, where's Waldo? For 8 years, we're like in the backdrop of everything going like, huh? So I don't know for certain, but you remember the Russian operative who got deployed through the National Prayer Breakfast, the redhead woman, with the woman, the NRA loving Do you like there's all this like documentation that she infiltrated through the National Prayer Breakfast?
Yes.
Well, we know this happened in advance of the 2016 election. So do you think she was at the 2014 prayer breakfast or was it 2015? Who knows? But that's like, this was the era of time.
I thought for a long time, who were those non-English speaking people from Eastern Europe that we were sitting at the table with? Who
knows?
This is where
who knows
power broke. Leaders from around the world came to get access to Christian leaders, and it wasn't long after
the American political power class on the right.
Yeah. So I think 2014 was when the Winter Olympics were in Russia. And I remember it was not long after that prayer breakfast when Franklin Graham was lauding Vladimir Putin for being this anti-gay, leader.
World
he was
leader.
passing
That's right.
what's that?
That's right. This anti-gay world leader. Yes.
QIA plus laws. And Franklin Graham was lauding what a great leader Putin was because he was anti-gay.
Yep.
And so if you watch the documentary, like any dictator around the world who the word Jesus slips from that person's lips, the family is there saying, you go, baby. Okay, so you're killing a bunch of your people. That's probably not good, but hey, you said Jesus and we're good.
Right. So
thus, when Trump says Jesus, we're good,
Yeah.
We're way over time. Do you want to save?
Go.
Like, is number 3 meeting Sarah Palin, by the way?
No, because
okay.
But we could talk about that next time.
We can talk about that next time. How about next
I was just going to say, like, the number 3 for me of like series of like this happened and this happened and then this. And so 2014 was whoa. And at this point, we've had 6 years of the Tea Party. At this point, we've had 6 years of like, for sure, President Obama is the devil. And if you love Jesus, then you have to hate him. Like, we've done all that. Okay, fast forward. But then there was Trump. And it was like, you take everything that we just talked about and you 1000x that. And it was the overt, like horridness. And then all these people lined up right there to say, but abortion, but Jesus. And that for you and me, that was the ultimate break. Like we broke hard. We were no longer like, in it, not of it. Da, 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 da. That was the, oh, you've got to be kidding me moment.
And let's come back to that next week. And also that Sarah Palin moment, when we met Sarah Palin, was a big moment for me to say, holy shit, we are way off the cliff if we're running after this woman and this person. And then also we can talk about our friends bringing QAnon to us and how unbelievably wacko that was.
Yes. Now
so
that's a great story. We gotta talk about
we'll tell all of that next week. I think what's important as we put a bow on this is, that guy from the Heritage Foundation saying, if it takes violence to make this a Christian nation, let it be violence. He didn't say it in those words, but that's what he was saying in essence. We have to understand that Christianity has been playing a long game toward this for a long, long time. And we need to understand what it means. And I don't know where we're going with this crazy thing with Joe Biden. And I guess one thing we could say is maybe Democrats don't fall in line quite as easily as Republicans do. But we cannot. I think it is a severe danger to human beings and to our society to let this Heritage Foundation type groups, Seven Mountain type groups, have access to the levers of power of the country, because people that we've known well and loved, we've seen how this what I would call hey, we could have political power. Hey, we could implement the things that our hearts have always desired for God to do. We can do on our own through political power. And it's so seductive and enticing that it's to be worried about.
Because in the name of Jesus, but Jesus would want us to have this power. Jesus would want this. Jesus would want this. I mean, it's so easy to slip into that. We have to save these stories for next time. Sorry. I was going to go down the path of like people telling us to leave our church because, it could offend people and Jesus needs you to be mayor more than he needs you to be a pastor. I mean, just so much like, dude, what?
Yeah. So we'll talk more about that next Wednesday. And you know what? I forgot we were supposed to have the Zoom meeting after the show today. That's on me, everyone. Next Wednesday, we will have, for those who are subscribers at the evangelicalish.com website, we will have a Zoom gathering together after the show. I'm so sorry that I let that slip this
our
week.
bad.
We'll do it
Sorry,
next
folks.
week.
And thank you so much for just tuning in, hanging in there with us tonight. We really enjoy being here with everybody, and thanks for the downloads. If you haven't yet, you should definitely subscribe to Evangelical-ish and make sure you can get all the special announcements and know when things are going on. And if you are feeling really generous, you could also support what Paul is doing every day and what I chime in on Wednesdays. You could support $4.99 a month, $5.99 a month, some small amount makes a big difference and helps us keep doing what we're doing. So consider that, and make sure to share and like. Tell everybody. I want to say again, special thanks to Enid Street Outreach Services. I shared this live like a million times tonight.
Nice.
So thank you to
and
to
Victoria. Reach out to us through evangelicalish.com. We would love to talk Elijah list with you for sure.
Yeah, that would be rich. All right. We'll see you next week.
All right. Love you all. We'll see you on Facebook and YouTube.